this is an issue everywhere.
All right, it's 5 o'clock. I'm going to officially call the meeting to order by opening open forum. What I'd like to do, since we have a large audience, is first let's go around. We're going to first go around our table, introduce ourselves, our committee members first, and then our adjoining aldermen, and then we'll go around and open public forum for all of you to make comments. And I'd like, because we are limited with time, to keep open forum to about 20 minutes. If we need a little extra time, we'll see if we're able to do that. Otherwise, we may have to limit additional comments after 20 minutes. So I'm Alderman Alicia Ruiz, 6th Ward. I'm the Chair of Public Works Committee.
Ralph Pavone, 5th Ward, Alderman.
Bob Schiller, Public Works Director.
Alderman Scott Lennon.
3rd Ward Alderman Richard Leach.
And then I'm going to go ahead and open it now to open forum and start with you, if you don't mind, please, just introducing yourself, and then if you have any comments, statements, or that you'd like to make, so feel free to go ahead.
Okay, my name is Diana and I'm a Berwyn resident. No comments, okay.
Okay.
Cynthia Colvin, I'm the Berwyn Canopy Trees Initiative, so I'm going to let Mary and Martha talk about that.
Okay.
I'm Mary Ferranto. I live in the 2nd Ward. I'm a member of the Berwyn Creek Community Initiative, and I have some I really wanted to talk directly, or without taking up time in open forum. I really want to know, coming up with the Juneteenth and the fact that BCTI will be there with a table, and we're expecting that there would be 40 trees from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, the Red Oaks, that we will be urging residents to take home and plant. I'd like to know if the current information that I have from Public Works, that doesn't have a date on it, but which Alex McKinley saved, and it was something that he got from Public Works when a tree was put in his parkway. So I don't know how old it is, but we want to make sure that if people are asking questions, we will refer them to you. But I guess I would like to know if what I see on my screen is really current. In other words, has it been updated in the last year and a half? The handout that Public Works gives to people when the city puts in a park.
Email it to me, I'll look at it and I'll respond to you.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, thank you.
My name is Martha Chiplis, and I'm here with the Berwyn Tree Canopy Initiative. And we just wanted to bring up the Berwyn, the lack of the tree planting program. So according to Berwyn records, only 582 trees have been planted in Berwyn since 2011. And that's an average of about 52 per year. And we need a proactive plan that increases annual planting to 300 trees per year minimum. And then I have another point, a second point, that's about a tree at 34th and Home. It's at the northeast corner of 34th and Home, and it's marked to be cut down, and I wanted to know why I cut it down. And one of our group actually talked to the homeowner, and he does not want it to be cut down. So that's the question.
We have a meeting in session, and it's really hard to hear our members speak. If you don't mind, please. Oh, well, great. That's wonderful.
Well, we have a door.
We can't close it. It's an open meeting. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
I'm done.
Sir?
My name is Miguel Alba. I'm at 2900 block of Maple in the 3rd Ward. And I'm here to express some concern about not only the sidewalks, but also some of the repairs that need to be done on the alleyway on that block between Wisconsin and Maple, where everyone's putting water, draining water from, diverting water from their garages, and it goes onto the alley. The alley floods, and it's creating a problem against all the garages as it eats away all the tuck pointing and that erosion. And I'm hoping to hear more about some of that and about the sidewalk issues that are. I had, as a point, I had went to the Public Works and asked about the 50/50 program, and I was told that somebody would come out to assess it, whether the sidewalk could, because what happens is when it rains, it pools in front of the walkway because the slope of the cement blocks are off, and so it pools, and in the winter it freezes, so it creates a little ice skating ring in front of the house there. So I was wondering if replacing the sidewalk would be a benefit. I was told that somebody would come out and check it out and tell me if that was the case, and I have not heard anyone from Berwyn contact me, or from the department contact me. So that's my name.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Kathy Doherty. I'm in the 3rd Ward. I'm at 3141 Winona Avenue. I'm here to support the sidewalk issue. I have to say that I did have a big old decaying tree in the parkway, and that got cut down, which I appreciate. I guess some of my personal issues are more about the flood mitigation system that I had used. The city had provided funding, right? So if you were having trouble with your basement being flooded, that you could again put in a system that worked. So I think where I'm having a slow response is the city really taking a look at the sewer and the box to make sure that all of that is functioning, so that my flood mitigation system can continue to work well. And my plumber says there's some issues there. So addressing that would be great. The sidewalk issue, though, is another thing that I'm here in support of, that we do something different with the asphalt.
Thank you. Mark?
Mark Weiner, 3132 Winona. I am here just a fly on the wall to support my wife.
Thank you. I'm Diane Weiner, and I spoke at City Council last meeting and about the sidewalks. And there's a large stretch on the corner of 34th and Wisconsin. Correct. And yes, 34th. It really stigmatizes, I think, the block and the neighborhood in general, because it just stands out. It looks bad. I think it's very unsafe too, because it's sort of uneven and it will crack eventually. And then of course our tax dollars will go to re-asphalt it. You know, so I'm thinking if our tax dollars are being paid to asphalt, put asphalt on the sidewalk, why can't they be used toward replacing the concrete in a proper manner? So what I did was I actually copied just some information from the Federal Highway Administration on how cities should fund or could fund sidewalk. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. Does anybody want a copy of this? Yes, thank you. Oh, yeah, thank you. So my question is, it's like, if you have a tree that's hazardous because there's a branch that's going to fall on somebody's car or on a person, the city comes out and they take care of it with taxpayer funds. If a sidewalk is cracked and there's fear that it may be unsafe, the city, we all pay for safe public walkways. And I'm asking us to consider a different way of replacing these unsafe public walkways rather than having a homeowner pay additional funds. There is something in that handout on just everybody chipping in like $15 into a replacement fund. So that's, you know, one of the options that some municipalities have chosen to do. But I'm asking us to relook at this again.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Molly Masters. I'm at 3205 Wisconsin. And everything that Diane said, I'm in agreement with. I think that we gotta, as a city, find a different way to replace these sidewalks and put on asphalt.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly McMillan at 4200 Winona, and I'm basically just gonna second everything that they said. I'm also a supporter of fly on the wall.
Our homes are in between two asphalt areas. I'm at 3200 Winona with Kelly. It's the corner of 32 in Wisconsin that has two areas. It's just their house that's gotten the asphalt treatment so far.
Thank you.
I'll wait.
I'm Lisa Flores. I'm at 3414 Oak Park Avenue, and I'm here to support the third ward in Old Berwyn on that.
On the sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Ditto on that. Jaime Flores, Mary Jo Sack, 3414 South Oak Park Avenue, and in support of Diane Weiner's proposals that you know, having the sidewalks look like that's terrible. It's not in the first ward per se, but it's certainly, I think, in other areas of Berwyn, and it affects all of us. So I'm here to support a lot of the recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Dick.
I am Dave Miklos, 2819 Wisconsin. I'm here to support Diane and the sidewalks, blacktop sidewalk issue.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
I'm Ben Pero, Kelly McDermott, fiance, live at the corner of 3200 Winona. I support everything that's been said so far. I'm a realtor. I might have a little bit of extra knowledge about just, you know, if our values don't rise, no one else's values rise in the third ward. It's the most expensive ward to live in. We have the highest tax amount, not by much, but you know, when our houses don't appreciate as quickly, no one else's do in the other wards. Asphalt gets eaten away by salt, and we're just gonna have a mess every winter. We're gonna have to repave it every winter. That's why you use concrete. There's gotta be some type of solution where if you've lived at the house for 15, 20 years, put a lien on it when they wanna sell it. You know, if you've only been there for 5 years, I just don't think it's really fair for it to be that homeowner's expectation to pay for part of the, you know, because you weren't there. And the way that the environment works now, people don't live anywhere longer than 5 or 7 years. They come in, they move. It happens all the time. So without sidewalks being maintained, I mean, it's very basic. And you know, about the pitch and the slope, yeah, it creates a big problem every winter if people aren't out there treating it, but you're treating it with salt or chemicals, and it's going to eat away at anything but concrete. It eats away at concrete too. But you know, we're right next door to one of the homes, and I got a $1,000 snowblower. The concrete wasn't that bad. I snowblowed it every time I used my snowblower. You know, try to pitch the chute down, not hit any cars with rocks, but I just think that it was a little bit of a decision made. You know, I wouldn't use my snowblower on their property or on their sidewalks if I was worried about breaking it. That wasn't.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, I'm going to close open forum. We're going to start our meeting at 5:13. I want to thank you all for coming here today, especially for taking the time out to be here and share your comments and your concerns. I'd like to thank Diane for reaching out to me when she first became aware of this issue and bringing it to my attention and having us meet about it. I just want to give everyone a little bit of a history. I'm not going to talk too in-depth about details, but I will share particularly about this property is that the sidewalk has been crumbling for some time now. And our ordinances, you know, I have not been forefront reviewing them consistently, but there has been, the owner has been very aware that the sidewalk needs to be replaced and very made aware of the sidewalk repair share program. They are not interested in getting it repaired. We don't have ordinances in place right now that enforce or strong arm families to make repairs.
We don't mandate.
We don't. But that's conversation maybe to be had about, moving forward, what are possibilities. I will share that my main concern is equity, because all families don't share the same socioeconomic backgrounds and possibilities. And so I would not like to see anything adopted or enforced that would not be equitable for the entire city. So looking at this, I want to thank Mark and Diane for all the research that they have done and they have forwarded to us. I have printed a lot of that out and shared with the committee members for review and comment at another time. But I just wanted to share that this is not an issue that the city has been purposely overlooking or not addressing. It is becoming, to me, in my opinion, a bigger problem. We've had patch situations occur, very random, and we've dealt with those but on case by case circumstances. And it just seems that it's becoming more, I don't want to use the word popular, but it's becoming more that residents are becoming resistant or not wanting to do it. So now we're in a predicament that we have to possibly change the policies that we follow. And that's not a simple task. I lost my train of thought there for a second. So those are conversations that we're going to be exploring from this meeting and possibly another one or two, so that anything that we come up with as a committee, we'd like to know, and I'm sure my members really agree with me, is that it's equitable for the entire city. So on that note, I'm gonna, now I remember what I was gonna say. Our concern here with Public Works Director and Alderman is that we are seeing more frequently lawsuits that the city has been having to pay out because of individuals, residents and non-residents, falling and hurting themselves. So we've got lawsuits for
Is that in the winter primarily?
medical work. I'm sorry?
Are those in the winter primarily?
No.
All year long.
Yeah, it's all year round.
Actually, it's more in the non-winter.
Right, than it is in the winter months.
Sure.
And our concern is, how do we prevent that? So this has been why you see on my agenda an emergency prepare, because we have a situation where it's not being reciprocated, we're not getting any cooperation, and we can't force or mandate anything. So that's why that was done.
Do you have documentation about the lawsuits and what the payouts have had to be, and because if there's been many lawsuits and there's been a lot of payouts, there's no way that
you can FOIA that anytime you like. You can FOIA that information. And actually, I'm sorry, I closed open forum. I closed open forum, so we can't have additional comments right now. We're going to move forward with
There's a question.
I know, I understand it.
Can we have Q&A at the end?
With the members separately, if you don't mind. So on that note, I'd like Director Schiller to share with us what has been the history with sidewalks and what are our current policy. I know we have a couple of them in place right now. So Bob, if you don't mind just giving us a little history and where we are now. Well, since your tenure with the city.
What we do now is basically, you've outlined it. We do an inventory approximately every 5 years and assess the conditions of the sidewalk. We maintain that inventory, and we send, once a year, shared cost sidewalk flyers to every residence in the city of Berwyn. For those that choose to participate, they'll know the sidewalks in front of their house better than I do or anything else, because I have 105 miles of sidewalks in the city of Berwyn that get assessed every 5 years. We go through, and today's litigations, and we average payouts in 5 digits for sidewalks, for trip and falls on sidewalks. Regardless of whether we knew about it or not, this is what today's life and times today are. So when we become aware of something, if it's not something that a homeowner chooses to repair or replace in a timely manner, or it's an extreme hazard, we do temporary asphalt sidewalks. We've done it several locations throughout the city. We did it on Grove Avenue, and there was a flurry of controversy on that as well. And as we stated when that happened, it's temporary because of the streetscape project that's in the midst right now. And it was there for about 4 or 5 years, lasted, was just fine, and it's going to be replaced within the next 2 years.
So it's still there?
Yes, currently still there. And we've done that in several locations where sidewalk has been in really rough shape, and we've had trip and falls, or we've been made aware of potential trip and falls, and we can't get a resident participation. I'll pave the sidewalk. It costs me pennies to pave a sidewalk versus concrete.
Not surprising.
You know, what we did on over there in Wisconsin, it was probably about $200 worth of asphalt. For me to do concrete would have been many times that. And
but $160 per square to the homeowner.
That's not the cost of the project. The cost to do a sidewalk square is approximately $230 a square. You take that, multiply it out times the 105 miles of sidewalk that we have in town. If you potentially have to replace the sidewalk, you're looking at $26 million.
Yeah, but we're not talking about replacing all sidewalks. So that's really a moot point.
I'm sorry, please.
That's
Please,
irrelevant.
I'm just asking you to please be respectful of the rules, that's all.
That's irrelevant.
I'm just asking. Otherwise, everyone gets to comment, and then the whole meeting's in disarray, and there's no procedure to follow.
So as I said, we go through, we send an annual flyer out, we will contact people, we'll return any calls that go into, or emails that go into the Public Works Distribution website regarding sidewalk questions. Criteria is a 1-inch variation in height, and if you're holding water on there, that's also one of the criterias for potential replacement or regrading of the parkway to be able to drain it. We've had that before too, where you have to regrade the parkway because of dirt being added or just the natural decomposition of grass clippings through the years have filled it up and created a low spot at the sidewalk. So there are many reasons why we'll do a temporary asphalt sidewalk. We don't look at them as permanent. We don't put them in as permanent. Although anybody in the athletic world would prefer us to put our sidewalks in an asphalt, because asphalt flexes and concrete doesn't. But that being said, that's not what we do here. We only do asphalt on a temporary basis.
And then, Bob, I know that you said you were gonna do a survey through the,
We did get a
West
survey out
Municipal
through the West Central Municipal Conference.
What was the survey again?
It's right in front of you here. The questions are there, and with the answers, I got one back so far from the community of Berkeley.
I'm gonna make copies for everyone so you can see the response.
Berkeley, California?
No, Berkeley, Illinois.
Oh,
So Berkeley Berkeley has about 35 miles of sidewalk, so they have about 1/3 of what we have. Their annual sidewalk budget is $25,000. Our annual sidewalk budget between grant funding and city funding is approximately $250,000. So, do they have a shared cost? They do not. They just do $25,000 worth of sidewalk. And $25,000 worth of sidewalk, using the bid numbers that we had.
Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Would be 107 squares of sidewalk a year. So.
What about at your budget? How many can you do?
So Bob, what is, how many municipalities were actually surveyed, do you know?
The entire West Central, so there's 20 some odd.
Okay.
That are involved there. So we've only gotten the one back so far.
Okay. Did we give them a parameter on what to apply, or did this actually go through?
No, we just, typically when you have these type of things, the council is very good about taking and putting together surveys, sending it out, and some respond, some don't. So, and I know everybody's in the same boat as we are, in the midst of construction season and everything, so it's not something I need to push too hard on.
Okay.
So, you know, as they come in, I'll stockpile them, because this is not something that's going to be solved overnight.
Okay. Committee members, questions, comments, statements you'd like to share?
Yeah, I was wondering, how many squares for the situation in Wisconsin, how many squares would that be right now? Do you know?
I believe it's around 12 to 14, I think it's a corner.
The corner was replaced.
Is that an L-shaped corner?
The corner
or
was
is
just
that,
replaced.
Is that an L-shaped corner, or is that just straight?
I'm the neighbor, yeah, the corner was just replaced. When our corner was replaced.
12 to 14.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Bob?
I think you might have mentioned this a little bit, but how many times do we utilize this? Like, how often are we utilizing the asphalt, like strategy when it's an emergency? Would you say per year or?
Usually once or twice.
Okay.
It just depends on the situation that we find and the circumstances involved.
Situation meaning the quality of the sidewalk.
I'm sorry, sir. It's not open for open discussion.
I just asked for clarity.
I know you keep asking for clarity.
All right, but no, I'm not a fan of the asphalt myself as a temporary patch, but right now we have no program in place, so I think we've got to work on some type of ordinance. We're gonna have to lien the property or some payment type plan from these residents over a number of years. You know, we put out the money and get these, 8, 10 squares done and take care of the problem. That's how I think we need to go about it, but we can discuss that in further meetings.
Okay.
But lien the property, payment plan, and put something on paper. We have nothing on paper right now.
Yes.
Right, we don't have any kind of mandated
Correct.
program, so that would require.
Correct, we need an ordinance.
An ordinance, legal, all of this.
Correct,
And
that's something we can work on,
I'm gonna recommend we kind of get a payment plan and not a lien.
Okay.
Because if somebody lives in a house for 30 years, the city's out 30 years
Yeah.
for the dollars associated with that.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I'm sorry, Alderman. go
I
ahead.
would agree with that as well, because a lien, it could go 20, 30 years out or 10 years out, and it'd be a while before we get our money back. So if we could do a short-term plan and try to recover that money and work with them. I had a senior on my block with a corner lot. She did 5 squares a year. She got it done in 3 or 4 years. So she can do it, and she's single, and she's a senior on a fixed income. I think that we can really look at everybody and try to put some plans together for equity. Maybe some people take a little longer to pay for it, but we need to do a fair program for the entire city.
I agree. I know that the circumstances have changed and we're having different dynamics arise that change our process now. And it's obviously time to update our current, we don't even have any ordinances, but it's time to update how we look at these, how we handle them, how we enforce them, and how we make it equitable for the entire city. I know there was questions about possibly adding them to water bills, and those are two very separate circumstances. And I just feel like that would increase hardship for some families who are having difficulties paying their water bills by adding additional cost, and then jeopardizing them, their water being shut off increases. So I'm not a fan of that. I think there has to be a mechanism that's separate from that, so that it doesn't increase hardship for different families. So it is definitely, and my biggest concern is the legality of it all. How can we adopt something and ensure that we're protecting the city as a whole with things like equity and enforcing and mandating. So it's gonna take a little bit of research to get this done. I would like to myself, I know that Mark and Diana has provided different municipalities that have a couple of things in place. I'd like to review those and also research some local municipalities that are a little bit more comparable to our city size and our population, and see what types of things they may be doing, just so that we can have a lot of information to review and then compile something that we feel would be a good fit for the city of Berwyn, and then have another meeting to review that, discuss it further, and then if it's something that we're all in agreement to, we can send it to legal to see just if that's something that is adoptable for the city. So I would imagine this is gonna take a couple months to get this done. It's not, as Bob mentioned, something that we could flip the switch on quickly. Any last comments, statements?
Yeah, with this payment plan option, Bob, that you're thinking about, would this all include, would the share, I guess, cost share program be included in that? Would the city be able to support in paying for HEP, or how does that work when you get into it?
It would not, I don't wanna speak for the other departments, but I'm telling you, to manage, 1,000 payment plans on top of everything else that goes on becomes very burdensome. So the object is to collect and move through our cost shared program, because the dollars that are collected go to offset the monies that are spent on the sidewalks that are being installed. If we're not gonna get those dollars in and everybody's gonna be on a payment plan, then our dollars are gonna reduce on what we're gonna be able to spend. So, I mean, that's why we do the cost shared program, so that we can maximize the amount of area we're able to do in a year. But in those extreme cases where somebody really wants to do it and really can't afford it, but is willing to get on a 12-month payment plan, because the reality is, you look at it's basically, all right, you use for math purposes $100 a square. So there's nobody, with the exception of a few on those real sharp corners on Riverside Drive, that have more than 20 squares.
Yeah, I was just checking the math right now. So we had 230 you were telling me earlier.
Well, the cost share is right now it's 93, I believe.
Right.
So it's 93 times 20. It's $1,800, $2,000. Right. So you'd set up a 12-month payment plan on $2,000.
That was my question. Just making sure that's an option. And I think some folks here have been talking about what I hear is mutual aid, or how can the block support it. But I think looking forward, is this being something that happens maybe once or twice every year, especially in emergency situations? Have we thought about just ways that the city can take, I guess, swifter action on the concrete side of things, and maybe put in more money in the budget for stuff like this when it is a serious emergency and we need to fix it, instead of going the asphalt route?
Well, this is definitely a topic that we can forward to finance for them to discuss at their committee meetings. We can send a communication to them that we'd like for them to review this when the
we get a draft program.
Committee meetings start. moving forward? What's that, usually July or August, you
Yeah,
start?
like August. We can also, I think what we probably should do is put a separate line item for a program like this, because you're gonna see money coming in and money going out, that would be separated from, what we have today. And we do replace sidewalks in Lomad through CBDG.
Yeah, we do get
Currently,
grants for the low mod income, but
yeah, but that's
not everybody qualifies for that.
So there's a couple blocks right now in my ward that are getting replacement sidewalks, and that's part of Lomad through it. And we do that throughout the city in different areas as well.
And is that, I know, because every year I get the flyer about the sidewalk shared program, comes in the mail. Do we share that through the CBDG as well? Is that a mailer that goes out to families to let them know?
CDBG is different.
But they don't do like routine mailers about.
They don't. We do the grant program through CDBG is not a voluntary, you sign up for it. HUD mandates you may only do an area that's contiguous to each other. So you have to sit there and evaluate the eligible block grant areas, look at the overall condition and go, all right, we can get the most bang for our buck here. Because you can't go a piece here, a piece here, a piece here, and a piece here. We used to be able to, but about 7 years ago or so, HUD changed the rules and said you can't do that anymore. So we have to pick a singular area and focus on that and devote all our efforts into that when it comes to the sidewalk.
Okay, so it can't be per household, it has to be per block.
Okay, it's gotta be per area, and at many blocks that are contiguous.
Okay, good to know, thank you.
So just because you're in a low mod area doesn't guarantee that you'd get sidewalks done through the grant program.
Okay. So I'd like to go ahead, unless there's other comments from our committee members, I'd like to go ahead and schedule a meeting for our next meeting, and then collect a little bit more information about what different municipalities are doing, bring that to our next committee meeting, have us review it, and then go from there on some ideas that we may want to start piecing some stuff together. How do you feel about that, Bob? Okay. When are you available? Is it a month from now?
Yeah,
today?
July's good. July should be good.
We normally meet before our council meeting, so we could do the 12th or the 26th. Do you have a preferred date? Bob, you have a preferred date? Either one
12th
works?
is fine for me.
Okay. Are you here on the 12th?
I'm at a conference.
So the 26th then?
Yeah.
26 works for me. That work for you, Bob, are you ready? Okay. All right, so we'll do 5 o'clock or 6, depending on Kyle's scheduled meeting. We'll do that Tuesday, the 26th. All right, so we do have a little bit of time. I'm gonna go ahead, this is not normal protocol, but I'm gonna go ahead and open it up for about 5 minutes of Q&A if anybody has any additional questions that they'd like to ask from our discussion.
I do.
Okay.
I don't want to start though. Who else wants to start? So you said that the sidewalk budget is what per year?
250,000.
It's approximately 250,000.
And you said each square is $230, not including what a homeowner would be investing. So does that mean it's
Total
230
cost.
plus the
Total cost.
100? Total's 230.
Total cost.
What happens to the budget that doesn't get used each year?
It gets used. It's used every year, and usually it goes over a little bit.
Okay. And then when it goes over, do you guys just increase, I mean, is it a property tax increase
I
or
have
is
to
it
adjust
from other?
funding from other areas to
Okay.
be able to cover it.
Okay.
They take off a different line item and they move to
Okay.
here, and they see towards the
So
end of the year.
right now on Stan, you know, between Oak Park Ave and Harlem, we've got all the construction going on. Those sidewalk squares that were busted, is that up to the EPA or that contractor to
That-
replace?
Those are all being
Everything is
replaced.
in there as
Okay.
part of the streetscape.
That's a separate program.
That's why some of
I
the
assumed,
asphalt.
I assumed it was.
Yeah, part of the asphalt in my ward is gonna be replaced, part of that infrastructure upgrade.
Okay.
So that's why we had to determine at that point.
And it's gonna be concrete, right?
It's gonna be concrete, yes. That's why we did it in a temporary.
And
It's been a
how,
couple
I
years.
know we're doing 1 to 2 sections a year depending on need, depending on situation, whatever those are. But you also said that there's been asphalt that's put down 5, 6, 7 years ago that's still there.
That's correct.
So has it been replaced asphalt wise since then, or it's the same asphalt you
Same
laid 6
asphalt.
years ago?
Same asphalt. Asphalt will last a long time when it's not under.
I'm sure it'll look great too,
The load of vehicles and everything else.
But people
And
have to salt their
aesthetics-
sidewalks.
Aesthetics on the side. It functions as a safe walking route.
so does gravel. I mean, aesthetics aside, that's kind of not the point, right? We're here partly due to aesthetics.
The section he's talking about is in 3300 Pocket Grove, and it's by a parking lot, there's no homes, so it's.
Who owns
A
that?
little bit of a different.
Who owns that sidewalk? Cause I know I talked to you about it, cause it was breaking up and we would all walk to the train
Right.
station, yeah.
Right, and that's why it was done.
Right.
And that's why we
And
pay.
that will be replaced.
As
This
part of the
depot
part of the
district.
depot
Right, so
project.
if there's no home, who owns it? Is the park, is it the bank?
It's the bank.
The bank now.
Yeah, the bank is the bank is the adjacent property, and they chose, well,
So
the
the
bank's
bank
not gonna
refused.
spend any money to do it, so.
Okay.
Hence, we did the, asphalt sidewalk.
Okay.
And for years, you've been able to walk on it without having fear of falling down or anything like that.
I fear falling on that
She
thing.
knows, she knows.
Oh,
So the other thing with asphalt,
wow.
the other thing you'll see with asphalt,
That is crazy.
if sidewalks are up a little bit, they might put asphalt on so it's less of a trip hazard when it's like that
Of
as
course,
well.
but that's when it's just a little bit of a seam.
Sure.
I have a question. This is not related to that. Well, although I do somehow want to tie it in eventually. Some of these sidewalks get torn up by the trees that are planted there. But what my specific question is, I would like to have a look into a tree on 34th and Home that's been marked to be cut down, and the tree homeowner doesn't want it cut down. So if you could look into that.
Is that the
So
same
that's
tree
a-
she mentioned?
Yes.
Yes.
It's,
Oh, okay.
I'll look into it, but I don't cut trees down because a homeowner wants them cut down.
Right.
I
The
do
homeowner-
not remove them for that reason, so
the
that's
homeowner
it.
does not
But
want
what
it.
I'm saying is I don't ever remove trees because somebody wants it down, so in no occasion, whenever a tree comes down, is it because the homeowner wants it down, unless it's like dead and they're in agreement with our decision, because they have 2 arborists on staff that'll go through and they'll evaluate these things and make sure that we're maintaining a safe and urban forest.
Who
So,
excuse me, who pays for removal of a tree?
the city pays for removal of a parkway tree.
And because you remove it because it's unsafe?
That's correct.
Or dead.
Okay. Well, on that note, our meeting's
We
adjourned.
had
I
a
wanna
question
thank-
over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Oh,
just,
I'm sorry. I didn't see. Go ahead.
Just a, can I make, another
No,
question,
absolutely.
a
Go
comment.
ahead, Hyman.
So the comment is, one, as we adjourn, and I don't think I'll be here for the next meeting, but I'll be following up. So to follow up, if you're not here for the next meeting, you'll be on the website, or how does that work with committees?
Yeah, so the meetings, public meetings always have a link, and it's called Boxcast, and it's also on YouTube. So you can always watch them after the meetings anytime, 24 hours a day.
Okay, so that's.
And they never get erased, so they'll always be there.
Okay, and then the other thing is that, just an FYI, I did go quickly into the website of Berwyn website, and you had, Tuesday, you had the right date, but you had the wrong day.
Oh, I put Tuesday, didn't I?
Yes, yeah. I know.
Yes, because we normally
Just
meet
an
on
FYI,
Tuesday, so I
know.
made sure the
Just
date
an
was
FYI.
right.
And I quickly emailed Mark Weiner and said, hey, by the way.
Good catch.
Where am I gonna
Thank you
be, and should I be in this area, or whatever, it's just an FYI.
Thank
And
you
then-
for bringing
And
that
then
to
second of
my
all, and then lastly is just, thank you for the Weiners for, bringing this up, and everybody else who is supporting, I think it's all of Berwyn, especially for those realty guys, you know, they need to make sure, you know, that everything is up and up when they're doing transactions in homes and things like that. Well, thank, you know, Bob here for all the stuff that he's doing, but, and I'm really encouraged that, Alicia, you put it as an emergency, because I think it is. I mean, come on, I mean, we have asphalt, and my wife was constantly, and of course, our alderman at first warned you, because he was constantly just saying, look, you know, it's dangerous, you know, from that sidewalk, and shame on that bank, you know, who didn't want to do anything, you know, and the lawsuits, you know, when you look at the lawsuits and you take a look at some of the other things, that may be cost us more effective just to get this thing done because of certain squares. Second, and lastly is I like all the recommendations that Alderman Feet, you know, spouted out, you know, a little bit here, and also Alicia, where you're going with this as well. So I look forward to some ordinance as we go forward. You know, whether the aldermen are here or we're here, but at least we have something for Berwyn to say this is the way it's going to work. And this is what's fair, I think, for the city and for its residents, and keeping in mind fixed income and things like that, because pretty soon, in our age, we'll be fixed incomes too.
We're in a long ways, don't worry.
So, but thank you so much, Leonard.
Do you have time for one question? One more question?
Okay, it's the last question.
All right, the last one. I just wonder, can you explain the process? Because you guys send the letters to our houses. We can volunteer to replace a square, right?
Correct. You're talking about the shared sidewalk.
program.
Correct. A mailer goes out every year before the season starts for replacement.
And that half of that square is paid for by the city, half funded.
Correct.
But what if the square in front of my house is not severe? I mean, is Public Works going through saying, well, that's good, but why should we waste half of the money on a square that's not that bad? Are you guys prioritizing where most of where the money should be spent? Or
now,
is it
are you
first come,
saying,
first served?
is your question based on a resident saying, yes, I want to participate in the program, and then Public Works comes out and says, it's not worth our money?
Are you guys, is Public Works doing that? Because that would save, you could prioritize where the money should be spent.
It typically does not.
We wish it had been that way.
I mean, it's one of those things that even if they're, you know, not as bad as somebody else's, they're still to a point where somebody's not gonna spend $100 of their money on a sidewalk that might have a chip out of it. If they're gonna spend the money on it, it's gonna be cracked up enough that they see some kind of a hazard in the foreseeable future. Therefore, they're gonna move forward with it. Whether it be water on the sidewalk, whether it be cracked, eroding. There's people are if people are going to spend dollars on the sidewalk, it's for a reason.
I see what you're saying is if there's just a crack and it's all level and it's not
It's not common that a resident's going to replace it at that level.
Well, it's something to consider, because then we could save the money for.
I get what you're saying.
And now we do the
absolutely.
tree service on the parkways, you know, it's not our property, it's the city's to maintain, right? When the trees are making the sidewalks come up, how do you guys solve those issues?
That's the residents, right?
It's still a cost shared sidewalk.
Okay. And is that a large majority of it, but is some of the budget coming from the tree fund and some coming from the sidewalk fund?
Percentage wise, very little.
Okay. Because you do see them and, you know, I just want to ask.
Okay. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, no problem.
Motion to
Nice to meet you.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the
Why for you?
That is water coming right for you. That freezes me like $29.09 Maple. And then it was gonna have a picture of the alley. No, this is the front. This is the front sidewalk. Yeah, you can see the street there and this is the driveway. This is just regular house because the whole block is pitched. So my question is, when I called, I'm like, is this worth $260? Because if you don't have to replace it, the pitch is incorrect.